everyone, and welcome to this Connect University session on the EU Digital Wallet. It's an event organized for and with the Digital Decade community on Futurium. So digital society and digital technologies bring with them new ways to communicate, entertain, explore, and fulfill ambitions. But we also know that the digital transformation also brings many challenges, particularly when it comes to connecting, protecting people, delivering online services to them, and making their lives easier in the digital environment. We sometimes hear that digital can make lives more complicated. Well, hopefully we're trying to dissect what makes their lives potentially easier here with our Connect University sessions. Why are we doing this workshop in particular today about the EU wallet? So that's first in the context of the publication of the third State of the Digital Decade report. We're organizing this to discuss more specifically what is it in the digital transformation of Europe that affects and improves people's and businesses' daily lives. And the EU Digital Identity Wallet, which we will discuss today, plays particularly an essential role in the digitalization of services. So we're hosting this workshop to gain an understanding of the tangible impacts that this wallet will have on our daily lives, for instance, lifting administrative burdens and frictions, and to help you learn more about its many applications. So this webinar is really in the context of the adoption of the wallet by member states. So the time is really ripe for a discussion about the changes that it will bring about for the citizens and the businesses in Europe. The webinar will first set the scene briefly. I will explain the relevance of the Digital Decade Policy Program, which I cover here at DigiConnect, and the relevance of this program and the EU Digital Identity Wallet, because it's part of the elements that our program monitors. So I will say that more about that in a moment. And then the second and the third part will bring together experts from the Commission and beyond to share up-to-date information about the policy framework, which we have here, and the benefits of the wallet, both at the legal and technical levels. And that will be based on the presentation of a set of concrete large-scale pilot projects. Last but not least, I'm happy to say that the webinar will take the discussion beyond the borders of the EU, looking at how Ukraine has created an effective and resilient e-governance system. And it's now, as some of you know, a forerunner in the digitalization of its public services, including with its own DIA app. So what can we learn also from Ukraine's example to understand more concretely what lies beyond digital government? Before moving to the presentations, a few housekeeping points to mention. So we have a number of people connecting online. Thank you for joining. You will be following the discussions remotely. Our speakers' contributions leave some space to be followed by a round of questions that will be addressed potentially after each of their presentation. So you can ask your questions to our panelists via Slido. And we also encourage those online to publish any comments or questions that you may have also on our Futurium page, and you can post in the comments of the main page event. The session is recorded and will be published on Futurium and our YouTube channel for those of you who cannot follow live today. So first of all, we will discuss a little bit more what the digital identity is about when it comes to its relevance to our Digital Decade Policy Program. So some of you already are familiar with this program and what we aim to do with it. I encourage you to seek information, of course, about especially our next report coming up in June, and last year was published in July. So there are several pillars and several elements that are good to know about this program. We have rolled out a number of objectives, including sovereignty, resilience, people's empowerment, but also sustainability with the twin transition in mind. And we monitor the progress of member states' digital transformation with a number of targets that are themselves measures with some indicators. So what do we see as trends, especially we started to really put that to the fore last year, is that people really are and should be at the center of the digital transformation in Europe. They also want to, not just must be, kept on board. We have tracked a few trends with the Eurobarometer survey last year. So for 88% of the population, it's important that public authority provide for proper support to accompany them through the digital transformation. They also want to know how their data is being processed when they use, for instance, social media and other online platforms. And they also are seeking for secure single digital solutions to identify with all these online services. So we really see that these are some of the needs that we want to address. And as part of that, there's an issue related to trust and control. So the sovereignty of our EU citizens' data is also at stake. So this has been a journey because it's been on the mind of the Commission since 2020. So ever since the previous Commission took office, with some strong words by President Ursula von der Leyen, especially when it comes to what happens to the data of people, and that we need solutions that they can trust and that any citizen can use anywhere they go. So from 2020 to last year's Digital Decade Report, where we set the scene also in the communication to explain that there's really a context that explains why those needs are becoming more important. And that it's becoming more essential for people to use secure, sovereign, and trustworthy tools. Now, also, because we have to link to today's topic, there has been an EU digital identity regulation that entered into force last year. And that's really a big change in terms of how the EU aims to simplify the life of citizens and businesses concretely, and to really give full control to people over the data that they share. Implementation, which you know has become part of the priorities, especially under this mandate, is also a big element of this, because implementation of all the regulations is critical to ensure that people have indeed their rights implemented online as much as they are offline. So the program itself, as I briefly mentioned earlier, gives way to a number of targets and objectives that we define and that we consider are driving the transformation of Europe in the digital space to ensure that it remains competitive, sovereign, and human-centric. And we have this annual report that tracks progress, as I mentioned, with all these targets and objectives, and measured concretely with a number of indicators. And when it comes to the digitalization of public services and digital identity, it is indeed monitored by, we can say, 3 targets. And I think one of the most important one here for today is to ensure that by 2030, 100% of our citizens in Europe have access to secure electronic identification, or EID. And last year, in July, when we published the report, we noted that there is a positive overall evolution when it comes to those indicators, with the availability of EID schemes and more availability of digital public services online. So the trend was already pretty positive last year. One key step, and my colleague Connor, joining us from Luxembourg, will tell you more about that later on. One key step in achieving the digitalization of public services, and so the target for 2030, really is about developing and implementing this wallet. So you can see here completely the target, the way it's described, and we are hoping that implementing this wallet will promote the uptake of online public services. So we measure it, and again, I encourage you to look into the program and the report and its methodology to understand a bit more about how we measure that. But we basically have 2 KPIs, 2 key performance indicators: the number of member states that have notified at least one national EID scheme, and the number of member states that have provided access to secure, privacy-enhancing EID via the wallet. And how are we doing? Well, 22 EU member states have made available EIDs, so that represents roughly about more than 93% of the EU population, so that's a progress. And we are seeing gradual advancements over the last 3 years. Last but not least, this was also mentioned in the report last year, but the take-up is progressing, but it's quite uneven sometimes across member states. So that's something we're seeking to improve. But there is a broader participation of all member states that we see in 2024 in last year's report. And that's really encouraging because that was one of the recommendations we had made in 2023, so the year previously. And just for your record, I've put the recommendations that are related to the EU digital identity. I've put them on the slide, but this is, of course, in the report that we published last year. So I will give the floor now to my colleague Connor Fitzmaurice, who is joining us kindly from the unit H4 in Luxembourg, who will tell us a bit more about the technicalities, the legal elements around this. And I hope this has also raised your interest in consulting our upcoming State of the Digital Decade report, which will be published mid-June. Thank you very much for your attention. And it's a pleasure to introduce you to Connor now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aline. So I'll just share my screen and start presenting. So one moment, please, while I do that. Okay. Just to check, everyone can see my slides? Although I think I can only hear you, Aline, if you...
Yes, it's all good for me. Thank you.
Perfect. Great. So yeah, I'm here today to go into a bit of what is the European Digital Identity Wallet and why is it important for Europe. I think Aline provided a lot of the important context of the Digital Decade Programme and where we'd like to position Europe by 2030 in terms of access to secure digital IDs, as well as supporting 100% of public services being available online. So the wallet is a key enabler of this. So maybe to go into some specifics of what the wallet is first. So yeah, I think this has been widely touched upon, so I won't spend more time on the digital decade. I think it's been very well covered. But to introduce what the European Digital Identity Wallet is, it's a personalized digital wallet for EU citizens, residents, and businesses. In terms of where the wallet came from, let's say to explain, it's the goal with your European digital identity wallets is to provide a safe, reliable, and privacy-enhancing means of digital identification available for everyone in Europe. It's the Commission's response to basically the challenges that exist around digital identification right now, and it's also capturing some of the trends that exist in terms of growing interaction with services via mobile means, so mobile phones and other devices. The wallet will allow one to securely identify oneself online when accessing a range of public and private services. It lets you store, present and share electronic attestations as they're termed in the regulation, but which you can really think of as digital documents or credentials. These can be everything from university diplomas, train tickets, loyalty cards. So it can be quite wide-ranging. The wallet, these European Digital Identity Wallets will allow you to sign digital documents easily and with legal validity, so that's quite important. So that's will help in scenarios such as contracts, signing a lease, many other scenarios. Finally, European Digital Identity Wallet. So there's an obligation as being touched upon for each EU country by the end of 2026 to make a European Digital Identity Wallet available in their member state for citizens where relevant businesses and residents. So maybe some key characteristics of the European Digital Identity Wallet initiative. So first of all, it's free of use for all EU citizens. So provided by member states, all EU citizens may use it for free on a voluntary basis. So basically, member states have an obligation to make a European Digital Identity Wallet available to their citizens within their member state, but there's no obligation on citizens to use it. So they can choose to use existing EID means or alternative in-person or other methods of accessing public and private services. But there's that obligation of member states to make this available to them, so they have the choice whether or not to get it. Next is that European Digital Identity Wallets should be accepted throughout the European Union. So they are recognized by public service providers, so that's mandatory, and private service providers where there's an obligation under law or contractual obligations to do strong customer authentication. So this is important. One of the key kind of characteristics or goals with the European Digital Identity Wallet initiative was to enhance citizens' control of their personal data and digital documents and such. Oftentimes right now, there is a feeling of lost control when users are using many of these existing login methods. So the goal was to put European citizens in the driver's seat with, first of all, getting a European Digital Identity Wallet, so that's a choice. Then next, it's basically you choose what digital documents you want to store in the wallet. So you choose what you bring into it, and European Digital Identity Wallet exists locally, so it's stored locally on your mobile device with the necessary encryptions and safeguards in place. Then when you're interacting with a public or private service, you can choose what data you select to disclose. So you have this support for selective disclosure. So this has been quite important. So maybe to explain kind of what is the core functionalities of a European Digital Identity Wallet. So the core functionalities of a wallet is split into three main areas. So first you have identification and authentication, which is quite similar to what exists right now with EID schemes across Europe, including those obviously notified under the EIDAS regulation. So this is identification and authentication to access public and private services, authorize a payment, and other things such as know your customer in terms of setting up a bank account. Next, we have storing and presenting attestation of attributes. So that's the term that's used in the regulation, but you can think of them as digital documents or credentials. So this could be a wide range of things such as your driving license, educational diplomas or certifications, loyalty cards, European health insurance card. So it could be a range of documents. There's really no limits that can be stored within European Digital Identity Wallet in alignment with kind of the technical standards and formats that have been specified. Finally, the final functionality of the wallet is the ability to sign and seal electronically. So this is the ability to sign with a qualified electronic signature, and this will provide, a signature that is both legally valid and is technically verifiable. So this is something you could use when signing a bank agreement, an employment contract, a lease, many scenarios where a digital signature is currently needed. Maybe one thing to note is for personal use, as set out in the regulation, these signatures are free of charge. So that's quite an enabler around digital signatures. So there's quite a lot of potential with European Digital Identity Wallets, and there's a wide range of, let's say, use cases or areas where wallets will be used. This is kind of a snapshot of, a number of areas currently being explored. So we have becoming a citizen in terms of government services, education, buying your first house, in terms of, contracts and payment authorization. So there's a quite a wide range. I won't go too much into detail, actually, because today we have the large-scale pilots who are all actively piloting a wide range of European use cases, both at a national and cross-border level in Europe, leveraging the European Digital Identity Wallets in those member states or those being developed. So I'll leave it to them to maybe deep dive into these use cases a bit more. Maybe just to touch on the state of play, where we are with the European Digital Identity Wallet initiative. First of all, it's important to just set out the regulation. So we have the regulation establishing the European Digital Identity Wallet European Digital Identity and Trust Framework. Sorry, this was published in basically April of last year in the official journal of the European Union and entered into force in May. Since then, we've been working on a number of essentially implementing acts. We have so far 9 implementing acts adopted, the first 5 in November of 2024, and the next 4 just recently have been adopted and will be published quite soon in the official journal of the European Union before coming into force in May. So that's on the legislative side in terms of the kind of work strand there. On the technical side, we have the wallet technical specifications known as the Architecture and Reference Framework. We're currently on version 1.9 to be followed quite soon by version 1.10. This will include updates based on the second batch of the implementing acts, which were quite recently adopted and received a positive opinion by the Comitology Committee. So it's quite soon. We're planning the publication of this hopefully tomorrow. So that's the technical specifications. Then we have the wallet reference implementation, which is basically a prototype or kind of prototype wallet that's made available by the Commission. So it's developed by a contractor working for the Commission. It includes both a fully fledged wallet solution, but also a number of libraries that are quite useful. And this is to really support member states either taking it in part, so it's modular, so they can take certain components or the libraries and use them in their own national wallet implementations, or take basically the solution in its entirety and rebadge it as their own national European digital identity wallet. So that's ongoing. There's a lot of work ongoing there, and basically at the end of the slides, I'll link you to the GitHub where you can see all the code that's been developed so far and follow that if you're more technically minded. We have the final thing to note in terms of the kind of work strands is the large scale pilots, which we'll be going into quite a bit of detail today. So we have the 4 large scale pilots that are currently running and have been since April 2023 and will run till this summer before concluding. So they're in quite active stages of piloting, which they'll go into themselves. We also have a new batch of large-scale pilots that will start basically Q3 of this year, so in 2025, and will run for 2 years till 2027. So these will be used to kind of further support member states developing and launching their European digital identity wallets, as well as piloting it around new use cases. Maybe just to highlight some things that may be of particular interest and timely. So right now, we have published a total of 12 new implementing acts, basically focused mostly on trust services, which is an area under the regulation. So these are published on the Have Your Say portal. They were published for public consultation on April 15th and are, I think, open till sometime in May. I have to double check. But we'll put the link in the chat, and it's also in the slides, so you can quickly find it. And if you have any views, please feel free to submit them via the Have Your Say portal. That's very much encouraged. So it's open, yes, 13th of May, sorry. So yeah, just to move on to the pilots today, I'll touch upon them on the high level, and then I'll let them go into more details themselves. So we have 4 large-scale pilots: potential, NOBID, EWC, and DC4EU. They involve over 360 entities across Europe. Almost all member states are included, except as well as Norway, Iceland, and Ukraine. They explore over 10 use cases in total, which you can see listed here. And essentially, they've been basically taking the European digital identity wallets and basically piloting them across a range of use cases, providing very useful feedback both for the technical development of both the reference implementation and the architecture and reference framework. So they provide real-world experience between their piloting they're doing. They also have helped inform member states' own efforts as they develop their wallets. And then finally, they've also essentially looked at the different use case areas and provided quite useful feedback in terms of how the wallet needs to adjust to support those use cases that we want to see in a European digital identity wallet. Maybe just to kind of wrap it up from my side. So just to give the timeline, so 2014, we had the original eIDAS regulation. Basically, we've been working since about 2020 when we did the impact assessment around the eIDAS regulation, and then there was a proposal in 2021 for the update of the regulation. So there's been a lot of work ongoing, both legislatively and technically. So we've had the trilogues, first the adoption of a general approach for the regulation, then the trilogues, and before the regulation was finally voted on by the European Council and the Parliament, and then was adopted last year. And we're still ongoing with the implementing acts, as you can see. So that's something that we'll be still working hard on this year. On the technical side, we have the toolbox process, which we've been ongoing. So that's kind of what I've covered so far in terms of the pilots, the technical specifications, and the wallet reference implementation. This has been ongoing since 2021, and it's been providing feedback both towards basically a continuous feedback loop with the legislative side. So right now we're in quite active developing and piloting of European digital identity wallets. The goal you already see in 2025, member states launching their national wallets. And this is all in preparation, obviously, of the deadline in 2026 for European digital identity wallets to be made available. So just to wrap it up, I'll just link these two sites where you can find further information. So first we have the stakeholder website we have for the European Digital Identity Wallet Initiative. So feel free to scan this QR code and follow the link there. For those more technically minded, we have the GitHub, which includes the wallet technical specifications as well as the the reference implementation and other resources such as the standards for tracking. So I'll link you that. Thank you very much for your time. I think we can start taking some questions. So I don't know, Aline, how we want to do this. Do you want to highlight questions to me, or will I go through the Slido chat and try and pick out some?
Yeah, thank you so much, Connor. That was very interesting and comprehensive, and I'm pretty sure the update is much appreciated for our audience. But indeed, there were some questions and requests for clarification. So I will just give you one or two to start with. We have about 5 minutes. So one of our participants has written, clearly the wallet is not just a wallet, it is electronic identification, ?
Yes.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, if you want to go through a bunch of questions, I can take them maybe all at once if I can. Otherwise, I can just go on this one. Yeah, just on the identification. So the wallet has kind of 3 core areas of functionality. One is authentication and authorization. So that's similar to existing ID schemes, and it leverages basically what exists right now in member states in terms of notified EID schemes. But we also have digital documents. So this is what's termed in the regulation attestation of attributes. But you can think of it as digital document and credential that you can store. Basically, you can choose to get it issued to your European Digital Identity Wallet. It's then stored within the wallet securely, and then you choose to present these documents from within the wallet. And then finally, there's the functionality I mentioned around signing. So I think that hopefully addresses that question. In terms of...
Are you seeing the questions now? Because
yeah, I can see them. So the question around what member states currently offer wallets and what are the numbers of wallets in current existence. To be honest, what I'll say is that most member states are actively developing their European digital identity wallets, with a number having already launched their national wallets. I give the example of Italy, for example, which has launched a national wallet. These aren't the EUDI wallets yet, so we need to have all the implementing acts in place, and to be a European digital identity wallet, you need to be in line with both the implementing acts and also certified against cybersecurity criteria that is set out in the implementing acts. But there's ongoing efforts with member states right now with their own national wallets. So there's quite a couple. So I know, for example, Italy has one, France has France Identity, and I think we'll hear a bit more of this in the large-scale pilot presentations. Next question, are all use cases mandatory for digital identity wallets? So there's the core functionalities of the wallet are mandatory. So to be a European digital identity wallet, you must support, as I kind of touched upon, the identification and authentication functionality, the digital electronic attestation of attributes, and the signing. So that's the functionality that must be supported. And then, that enables a number of use cases beyond that, but we're not mandating specific use cases in the regulation itself. I suppose maybe just one thing to touch upon is it is mandatory in the context of, public services to accept European digital identity wallets as a means to identify and basically access those public services. And then for private sector, where there's an obligation under law to do strong customer authentication, there is that obligation. How many implementing acts are still to come? To be honest, I think there's quite a number, but I would point you right now towards the 12 implementing acts we have at the moment. There's still more implementing acts to come, but we need to first have some discussions regarding how many on that one. This is an opportunity to merge or separate implementing acts as we get to the different elements of the regulation and what we need to detail. I don't know, there's still quite a couple of questions coming in, and I'm just conscious of time.
Yeah, it's all right. I think you can take them. They're very interesting questions.
Is the implication of this that the Nordic countries that already have very built out and widely adopted EID frameworks, Bank ID in Norway and separately in Sweden will have to switch to use this framework? No, that's not necessarily the implication. So to get a European digital identity wallet, you need to onboard with basically what is a notified EID means at level of assurance high. So for example, Bank ID in Norway is such a notified EID scheme. So it's very much leveraging those EID schemes that already exist. So it's complementary more so than replacing it. Now the wallet itself will be a secure EID means at level of assurance high. So in the future, users will be able to use it, when interacting with public and private services. So you could see certain member states transition towards using EUDI wallets as just their EID means, but right now that's not currently envisioned. I think for me, are the new batch of large-scale pilots open for the participation of non-profit organizations? Just to clarify, that call opened May of last year and closed in November. So there's not really an opportunity to participate in the new batch of large-scale pilots, except in an observer role, where you can engage with them. And I think they all have kind of defined a process by which you can engage to observe their work. But in terms of active participation, I would say it's closed, that opportunity. There may be future funding calls under the new Digital Europe work program, but that still has to be explored further. To be honest, in terms of other questions, will the European wallet somehow be linked with future ECBDC, Digital Euro? If so, what would the implications be? To be honest, on that one, I know there's provisions in the Digital Europe regulation that specifies interoperability with the European Digital Identity Wallet, and I think more in the context of authorizing of payments and such. But so it is something that there is a link there, and there's work ongoing to ensure there's interoperability between the two initiatives. So I think that I'll leave it at that on that one. Just in terms of the question, thank you for the presentation so far. Any views on how the European digital identity wallets relate to the European business wallet foreseen later in 2025? So the European business wallet very much builds on the European digital identity wallet and trust framework. So it's leveraging what already exists in terms of both the regulation, but also the technical work that has been done as part of the European digital identity toolbox. So it's very much building on that. I think that's probably.
You have two more questions that came through. I think if we give it just a couple of more minutes, that's still doable, but then we'll have to potentially take those questions at the end or respond to them online. So feel free to just take the last couple of minutes to address the last ones.
Yeah, I'm just reviewing them at the moment. So I think it's best probably to come back and writing on some of these questions. If people want to send them in, we can look at them. But some of them are quite detailed. So on what infrastructure will be put in place in the member states to validate attributes before issuing just digital identity frameworks? Can you provide me a guess when we will have the next batch of implementing acts? To be honest, I'd say if you're interested, feel free to send these questions on to us and we'll come back in a bit more writing on them, because they're quite wide ranging and I would need to consult with some colleagues. But I think for me, that's I think it.
Well, thanks Thanks a lot, Connor, for taking as many questions as possible. And indeed, we will answer to you all who have shown a lot of interest for this part. And thank you very much. We will answer those questions later on online. But now it's time to move on to the presentation of the 4 large-scale pilot projects, which Connor mentioned. So since 2023, there's 4 of them that we're using to test use cases. So the floor will now be given to Florian André, who's taking care of the NOBID pilot project. So NOBID being a set of Nordic and Baltic countries who, together with Italy and Germany, will pilot the use of the EU Digital Identity Wallet for the authorization of payments for products and services by the wallet user. So it's my pleasure to give the floor now to Florian, if you wish to share your screen so that we can all see your presentation. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for having me. So I will just share my screen. Hopefully that works. So can everybody see my slide?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So yes, Florian André representing the NOBID LSP. So I myself, I'm responsible for leading the work package 7, which takes care of the actual implementation of the payment use case in NOBID. And yes, this is led by the German Savings Banks Association and also by Intesa Sanpaolo from Italy. So yes, the NOBID LSPs, as already mentioned, consists of 6 different member states. There is Norway, Latvia, Italy, Denmark, Iceland, and Germany. And yeah, the members are coming from different parts of the financial service industry. We've also got several merchants involved in the pilot, and yes, we're sorry. And these are the different use cases we are working on in the last 2 years almost. So as said before, the NOBID LSP is actually focusing on the use case payment, and to be more specific, account-to-account payments. And so this is the main part of the pilot, but we're also looking at the different use cases around. So another focus topic of the LSP is to actually create a pilot wallet. This is done by our implementation partner, Thales. So the pilot wallet we're developing in NOBID is actually based on the reference implementation Connor mentioned before. However, we're not just taking the reference implementation. The actual challenge here is to close the gaps that we identified that are more or less needed to facilitate the payment process. So, but we'll come to this later. Of course, we also looked at onboarding the users. So, of course, you should have your identity deployed to the wallet. Of course, executing payment transaction, but we're also looking at facilitating additional attributes. So this is also a very interesting use case, looking at how payments can actually combined with other attributes, which makes the wallet a very interesting and powerful tool, as it offers, or it opens up use cases that currently are actually not possible. And also we're looking at digital signatures, so how to use the wallet for signing, which might be also included when you look at payments, like how to actually engage with the payment service provider. You might sign terms and conditions there. So therefore, we're also looking at that topic. For now, since there's not that much time, I would like to actually focus on the payment use case. So what have we done there? Mainly from a actually user flow perspective, so that you can actually get the visuals. And while showing this, I will also explain a little bit what we did there in the background. So when we're looking at the actual payment use case, we have like 3 major topics we looked at. Topic number one is to actually how to onboard a wallet. So we really identified the need that before you actually can use the wallet to authorize payment transactions, you need to connect it somehow to well, the existing customer or bank account you have at a bank. So there is this enrollment process. This is what we look at first. The second is the actual transaction part, like to do a payment. It's either in-store or online in an e-commerce shop. And the third part is, well, additional features we identified around the payment use case. So having payments is nice, but when you look at current, well, wallet or actual payment solutions like PayPal or something like this, for example, there are a lot of additional features they offer. And we also looked at this. So how could this be also integrated in the European identity wallet? So what would be necessary for that? So these are the main three parts. So starting with the enrollment flow. One of the main premises we had when we started the pilot was to actually, well, how can we integrate payment and leveraging most of what is already there. So we looked at the protocols, we looked at the technical capabilities of the wallet, and there we found a lot that we already have today in proprietary banking apps. Like there are means for secure key management. There is an exchange protocol. So this is what we really wanted to use. So we don't need to, well, enforce additional protocols and features on the already quite complex part of a wallet application there. So this was kind of a premises. And what we did there is we looked, well, what does the wallet support in terms of communications? And the one thing is we looked at the issuing part. So of course, the wallet, one of the standard features of the wallet is that you can issue credentials, you can issue your identity into this wallet. And this is what we wanted to use to say, okay, why can't we issue something like a payment mean into the wallet? Like people may know it from solutions like Apple Pay or Google Pay, where you issue your credit card into the solution there. So we wanted to reuse this, and this is the actual enrollment process. So, and if you want to, here we can see what this actually might look like. So we leveraged the credential feature, or the issuing feature of credentials, to issue a payment mean into the wallet. And this might be done in two different ways. So you either might do this from your online banking, you log into your online banking, your bank knows exactly who you are, and from this authorized context, you will be issued a credential, a dedicated payment credential, which might be connected to a certain payment scheme, like maybe a domestic payment scheme, or also a credential that might be used for open banking later on. So this is what we issue into the wallet. So as I said before, either from the internet page of your online banking, or also from your existing banking app. So during this during this enrollment process, the bank will ensure your identity, so that the bank knows exactly who you are. So this can be done by using, well, existing means like existing authentication means like well, authenticator apps you're already using in your banking flow today. So so for the internet banking flow, this is a classic cross-device flow. Once you log in there, you will be presented with a QR code, and this will actually start the issuing process. This issuing process itself is done with the standard protocol OpenID for VCI. This is what we're using there. And as you can see here, you will be presented with a credential you actually want to add. You can review this credential, and the user is confirming the addition of the credential to the wallet with his PIN or with his biometrics. So, and then this is a one-time process. The identity or the credential then resides in the wallet and can be used for following payment processes. So the same goes if you do this from your banking app. This is what partners have implemented. So you're using your proprietary banking app and you click on a button, add this payment mean to the EUDI Wallet, and the following process is the same. You're confirming this, providing also your PIN or biometrics. The credentials added to the identity wallet. So to provide at least a few technical specifications. So the actual payment mean is, as I said before, it's a credential that is either in the supported credential formats. In our pilot, we mainly looked at the SDJ credential format, and this is how a payment credential might look like. Such a credential doesn't have to contain much in terms of data minimization. It more or less needs a unique identifier where the bank can connect the credential to the actual customer and may support scheme-specific parameters that third party may use to actually facilitate the payment. So now, when we look at the actual payment, for the payment itself, we identified two main flows that we wanted to implement. And so to the one flow, we refer to it is to the issuer requested flow. So this is a flow where the bank itself, the bank that is actually holding the customer data, is requesting an authorization of a payment. So you could also call it a two-party model. This is what is actually mandatory by the regulations. So this is what banks need to support. So the customer must be able to use their wallet to authorize payments. So whenever I go into my online banking and I want to transfer a certain amount, then the bank would ask, okay, please authorize this amount in terms of strong customer authentication, and the wallet would be used to authorize exactly this payment. The second flow is the payee requested flow. So in this flow, and this is actually what we focused on our pilot, because it is way more interesting because it is representing far more day-to-day use cases, like actually shopping at an online store. So in this model, or in this flow, we have actually three parties. We have the bank, which is holding the account of the customer. We have the wallet itself, and we have, well, the verifier or payee, which is usually a merchant. So in this case, it works a little bit differently, because in this case, the merchant who wants you to pay is actually requesting to authorize a transaction with the wallet. And here we're also using the standard protocols OpenID for VP, which is the same protocol as you would use if you would present your identity data or anything else out of the wallet. So we're using this protocol to present the payment credential to the payee, and the payee then forwards this authorized payment to the actual issuer, which is the bank, to actually execute the transaction here. So this is the model we focused on in NOBID. So one of the main challenges that actually we identified right from the start is that looking at payments, we have certain requirements that go beyond the classic presentation of attributes. Since in payment, we don't only want to see the actual payment mean, but as a bank, you also need to request the actual. You need to authorize the actual transaction. So you need to include the details of the transaction into the payment request. And this is, required by regulation with the PSD2 regulation, that banks are obliged to do this. And well, this is we had to find a way to combine the classic presentation of an attribute, which of course is also signed by the wallet. So we needed to find a way to include the dynamic transaction data, which is unique to every single payment transaction. So, and we took several approaches, but in the end, there was also an exchange with, for example, also the OpenID Foundation, and there was a feature and developed and suggested and developed, which is called transaction data feature. So currently, by using the OpenID for VP protocol, the wallet will be able that you can connect a presentation of a credential with a dynamic set of transaction data details. And that is what we then use for payment, and that is also what we implemented in NOBID. So how it works now is that if you want to authorize a transaction, the relying party is asking for a dedicated payment credential and will then include the details of the transaction into that. And this is something we had to, well, this is what we prototyped in NOBID. These transaction details also need to be well displayed to the user. This is a hard requirement we needed to go for. And this is what is shown here in the screen. So now with the NOBID prototype wallet, you will ask for the payment credential, and then you will present it with the actual details of this transaction here. And then you can, well, press pay and pay for your services. So the thing is, we're using the remote presentation protocol, which is, as I mentioned before, OpenID for VP. And although it's a remote presentation protocol, this also works like in in-store use cases. So you could also, and this is what we also tested in NOBID, you could also go to supermarket and there you will be presented with a QR code to initiate the same process. So there would actually be not much of a difference between using the wallet online or using it in store.
Florian?
So, yes.
Sorry for interrupting. Just to bear in mind that you have a couple of minutes left and a couple of questions from the audience. So if you could speed up or...
Yes, I will just quickly sum up. So here is here's some screenshots of how it would like in store. As I said before, it would be a classic cross-device flow. You would be using a QR code, could also be initiated using, for example, an NFC tag or something like this. So, and the last part I wanted to show you, and then I think we're starting to take questions, and then we can come to the details, is some additional features we included. That is, for example, well, having an overview over your transaction. Like what the wallet, like the generic function of the wallet is that you have a transaction log, which is more about which credential did I present to whom at what point in time. But looking at payments, we thought, okay, we need something that is actually related to the payment process, because if I pay, I'm not just interested that I showed my payment mean to someone, but I'm actually interested, did the transaction work? So do I also get feedback in the wallet that the transaction is complete, like a green check mark? So, and to cope for that, we implemented additional APIs who would be able to transmit the payment status. So these are all additional features for the wallet, but that from our point of view would be needed to, well, facilitate payment in a way that is comparable to the experience users are known to today. So here are some impressions of how that might look like. Although I know this is not a mandatory part for the wallet, but yeah, in our point of view, it's required. So thank you. Now I'm taking questions.
I'm really sorry. I hate to do this. So we will one of the two questions, and if that's all right, we will send you the second question so you can answer in writing. So one of the questions, and please be brief, is the EU Wallet replacing the banking wallet app, or is it implementing APIs to interact with it? So what personal banking info is stored on the wallet is also a question, but
No, it is not replacing the banking app. Like, of course, you could imagine a scenario where a bank converts his banking app to a European identity wallet, but you won't have features like listing all your accounts, initiating transaction to someone else. So this will still be part of your banking app. So this is actually purely on payment authorization and payment initiation.
okay, thank you so much again, Florian. And again, apologies for having to interrupt you, but we still have 3 presentations for the other pilots to go and one last presentation. So thanks you all for your attention, and also to our participants who have shown interest with asking questions. We will get back to you very soon to address those. So the second pilot project to be presented today is the EU Digital Wallet Consortium, EWC, and it's time for me to give the floor to David Magard, who's Senior Advisor and Coordinator of this consortium. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. EWC, let's go. An overview of EWC, of course, at first. We are a quite big consortia, the second biggest of the 4. We focus our use cases in travel, payments, and organizational legal person digital identity. This could also be summarized as wallet for businesses, maybe. The last point there. We are, of course, a member state-driven consortia as the others, and in this case, it's led from Sweden and co-coordinated by the Finnish Ministry of Finance. We are a public-private consortia to the core, really. We're a lot of private actors, big and small. We are now 86 participating organizations. We're joined by Lufthansa, Google, and Visit Benidorm recently. We have 8 business registers involved, and as I said, also a lot of SMEs and other great companies from Europe and abroad, actually. We have mainly been focusing on remote use of the wallet in the different use cases. And for you techies there, that means that we are steered to using SDJOT. That has been what we're working mostly with. We have a few things named up, but really SDJOT and using the wallet in scenarios where it's a remote use. Our focus cases where we started out from, the travel part is of course very interesting, and it's also cross-border by default. And we have to remember this, of course, that the EIDAS regulation is meant to harmonize the internal market, so it needs to function cross-border. And we are exploring scenarios where you board a plane or sharing a ticket or checking into a hotel and doing that using the wallet. Then we have the organizational identity, which we kind of brought in as a bit something new. There is in the regulation articles on legal person identity and legal person wallet. And of course, we do think that this is needed for an interoperable ecosystem that you can, of course, identify and validate the natural person, but also the legal persons, the mutual authentication. We can see that especially now with the rise of the AI agents and so on, that I as a person would, I hope, I like to know that the organization that I'm actually interacting with, or the agent that is acting on behalf of an organization, is in fact a validated organization that is part of the EIDAS trust ecosystem. There's also business cases in this, and you can see some of them. I will mention them more in a few slides. Then payments. Florian did a very nice walkthrough of what they are doing, and it's very similar to what we are doing because we are co-working a lot. We will also produce common rule books together with NOBID to see how we can ensure that the wallet is being able to being used in payment transactions. And we can also see from the experiences in the countries who have the most mature EIDA schemes that payment is a huge driver for adoption. And that is important because we of course must mind the people. How do they feel about the wallet? And part of EWC is that we do user surveys. We try to engage with potential users of the wallet and see what they think. And this is just a short glimpse of a survey outcome. And as you can see, there is
true. Sorry to interrupt. Is it actually true? Because it really looks, it's very funny at the same time. It's very typical when you see what a country would say about it, like the Germans about data security and everything. So it's accurate. It's a real survey.
This is a real survey. Yeah, indeed. I guess I guess the prejudices are correct then. So, but yeah, it's this comes from a real survey. And we can see, as you can see here, there are a lot of different angles to it. So we have EIDAS schemes in use, and some are already satisfied with that, and some are, of course, receptive to the idea that this might be some EU control or overreach from the government. Something we need to be very mindful of and continue to explain why this is a solution that actually ensures the privacy and integrity of the person using the wallet, both by regulation but also from a technical way. So when it comes to the wallet for businesses, the organizational wallet, legal person wallet, there are a lot of kind of synonyms to this. We are looking at these use cases in the foundation, of course. However, there are the business registers that issue the legal person identification person data, the LPID, to ensure the integrity and that is the correct organization that is using then the wallet for legal person, and they can do this in different scenarios. We are exploring all of these ones, and we can already see there's a lot of traction on this, and now of course the commission has said that they will propose a new regulation on wallet for businesses, which we in dialogue think will improve a lot of the things that we are doing here, because the EIDAS regulation in some parts are not really perfectly matched to the needs of the businesses, as most of the regulation is naturally focused on a natural person using the wallet and also with a mobile phone. These scenarios are more scenarios where you need a server-based wallet, something else that can be integrated in existing business systems and infrastructures. But we are gaining a lot of insights in this work, and of course all published or will be published. And not only are we piloting internally, we are also trying to pilot externally. So we have end user pilots. This is done with test data and so on, but with real wallets. And you can see here some of the scenarios that we are working on in the travel part of EWC. So visit Buda Castle. You want to go there, you want to use your wallet to identify, maybe also to get a reduced price on the ticket since you're a senior. you can prove your age and verify that through the wallet, and they get the reduced price. Also check in quickly on an airport and book ferries in, for example, Greece. This is happening now, so if you want to engage and test these scenarios, you should visit our homepage or our LinkedIn page. I think they will be shared afterwards or in the slides, but you can also Google it, EWC. So please do that. It gives us a lot of insights and intels. I won't go into detail so much on this. Florian did a good overview of the payment. As I said, it's quite similar, working together with this, but we we can see a lot of interesting stuff when you combine identification with payment functionalities. So in this case, it's just for illustration purposes though, but a person want to buy a knife and they want to pay and they want to identify, but they want to also, of course, verify that they are over 18 to be able to buy this possible weapon. And then there's the combination in reality, which we actually did. We did the first real transaction of and payment using a wallet. Of course, the others wallet aren't certified and so on, but as close to reality as it's possible. So a person in the consortia in Greece went from Romania, bought a ticket with a wallet, got the ticket into the wallet, boarded fast ferries, the ferry company in Greece, part of the consortia, and we can see that this works actually very easy and slim and nice. So we are going to expand on this, and in the next phase of the consortia, the last phase, we're trying to dig deeper in this and use real data, work with real people, make real transactions using the wallets. So in my mind, this is a very, I think it's a great outcome, and did go faster than I actually expected, because we only have been running for 1.5 years, but we are already able to prove that this is something that is possible and doable. The expected outcomes, and I would say expected because it's not it's not done yet. We have a couple of months. We finish in September, but what we can see and tell from the pilots, the surveys, what we're doing is that we can most likely reduce a lot of traction. So faster check-in, less use of paper, convenient cross-border uses, of course, and one thing that is not discussed so much, I think, but less fraud. That is, of course, very, very important when it comes to the payment side as well. And so combining payments with different attestations, such as proof of age, will, of course, enhance customer experience, preserve privacy, as I said, with the new regulation and new technologies used, but also increase security for the relying party. They know that this is a person. They can rely on the work that's been done from the start, really, where the government ensures the integrity of the person that is using the wallet. In the business wallet side, it of course is very similar. We can see already reduced cost and time in processes for know your customer, know your supplier, but also underlying kind of foundational part when it comes to the business wallet is that verified data, verified identity, also combined with verified data and standardized data, because that is what's happening with the attestations, leads to the possibility of a lot of automated processes. With this said, I think we have to remind us of this all the time. I try to do that. There is no golden use cases. This, I mean, the wallet essentially is a part of a digital infrastructure, a very, very important part, but They can be used in many ways, and I think we haven't seen the real value actually yet. I think it's much more to do. With that said, I would like this one: no more passwords. Love it. Don't need to do it in Sweden. So yeah, that's a short presentation from EWC. Thank you very much, and please follow us. Please do the end user pilot as well. It will, I think it's really nice to see, and it's very good for us to get your input and insights. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. We will probably send you through any questions we may have later on in the interest of time, but this was really interesting. And just to reassure some of our participants, yes, your slides will be shared with the community. So no worries, you can all catch up on that great slide, especially which has my preference with the survey responses per country. So now we're going to turn to the third pilot project, which is called Potential. And it's my pleasure to ask Anthony Carmoy to join us on the screen. You will share your presentation and show us what Potential is about. I think it's about 6 digital identity sectors. So the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eileen, and thank you to the Commission for giving us the opportunity to present our work from Potential. My name is Anthony Carmoy. I work for the French Agency for Digital Documents. It's basically the agency of the Ministry of the Interior in charge of issuing all secure documents, may them be driving licenses, may them be identity cards, and we also provide the France Identité app, which we hope will become the French EUDI Wallet. Potential is a very large consortium. We have more than 18 member states represented, as well as Ukraine. 6 use cases are in scope of Potential, and basically, unlike EWC, where the scope is more on legal persons, basically our focus is more on citizen-driven use cases. Aiming at natural persons, and we have a big consortium with many actors. As you can see on the slide, basically one of the key elements of Potential is having this very wide range of different actors. So we have many ministries of the Interior, of Digital Affairs, and such. Also working with major research centers, major companies and startups, acting both as wallet issuers or relying parties or credential issuers, or more commonly, tech providers supporting the different use cases we work on. The Potential Consortium is driven by a Franco-German cooperation, so the French Ministry of the Interior, as well as the German Federal Ministry of the Interior, do oversee the coordination of Potential, both from the administrative, let's say, part of things, but also from the technical perspective. Potential is split into 4 work packages. So here I'm presenting work package 3. So I will delve deeper into the use case implementation later. But basically what is also one of the core intents of Potential is to, let's say, provide support to the use case implementation by having a common agreed within Potential infrastructure, architecture, and technical implementations. This is a team of work which was led by Germany, and the intent was indeed to agree on a common set of specifications, because in the end, when it comes to the different wallet transactions, it does not really matter the type of document which is shared. It's mostly the protocols being used. And since we know that we are still waiting for some protocols to be finalized, it's quite helpful for us to agree on this common set of specifications. So Potential, we have 6 different use cases. Use case 1 on the far left of the slides, basically the intent is to have online authentication for administrative procedures. So it's what we call e-government. For the French people, it's exactly like France Connect. Basically, the intent is to pilot multiple scenarios. Of course, let's say the simple one, is having a presentation of the person identification data, both remote but also in proximity scenarios, in case someone goes to the national city office for paying taxes, for example. This is a use case which is covered. But we're also exploring a deeper use case within that. Basically, our intent is to pilot, let's say, the authentication to eGov services, and in return receive a certificate of residency into the wallet as a qualified electronic attestation of attributes. So testing both, let's say, the whole process, issuing a PID, showing a PID, and retrieving a useful attestation which can be used for other use cases. Speaking of which, use case 2 is intended to secure the procedures for opening a bank account, saving accounts, any type of KYC process that the banks are entitled to do when having a new customer. So this is quite challenging because, and this is, I think, one of the, let's say, advantages and what Europe brought to the different member states. It's also having, let's say, very national, also having national regulations. What we saw in this use case is that from France, from Germany, from Greece, and many other member states, the documents which are demanded when opening bank account, there is a huge variety. It's a very wide range. We do not have common sets of documents that are intended to be asked to the customer when opening bank accounts. But I understand that there was an effort from the regulatory point of view to enable that. But still, we still have this challenge in having multiple documents diverging from one member state to another being requested to open a bank account. For example, in France, when you open a bank account, you have to provide, let's say, the transcripts of your manual signature, because we use what we call check, and the signature manual is something that the bank needs to know of you. Use case 3, this is also an onboarding process, but this time for subscribing to telephone contracts. Here, basically, the intent is same as the use case on banking, but we have also other objectives in mind. Basically, apart from the subscription and providing all necessary documents and attributes to the MNOs, the idea is to also use the wallet to store, let's say, an MSISDN, which is basically the phone number, as a qualified electronic attestation of attributes. This is quite helpful because of attacks such as spoofing phone numbers and such. Let's say the SMS OTP way to ensure that someone is really the right person holding the phone. This is more at risk today, and basically the use of the MSISDN function inside the wallet would also cover such risks without to not rely on SMS OTPs. Use case 4, which is one of our core use cases, basically the intent is to share the mobile jamming license, both in proximity, for example, when doing a road check by the police forces, but also online in case of renting a car. Use case 5, this is one of our, let's say, pivotal use cases, because basically signature, as presented by Connor earlier, it's one of the key function of the wallets. And for each of the use cases that were presented above and before, basically signature can take place. You pay taxes, you open a bank account, you subscribe to a phone contract, you rent a car, there's signature. So we have this, let's say, pivotal use cases, which is also experimented in all other use cases. Finally, we have the e-prescription use case. So there are multiple ways to work that out. One way could be to indeed store an e-prescription into the wallets as an attestation. But another way could also be to, let's say, share my patient identification data to a pharmacy. Could be in remote presentation or proximity presentation to the pharmacy, which then is able to retrieve the prescription from the European health system, which connects the different member states in issuing prescriptions. So these were the 6 use cases. Now we'll delve into what was the technical roadmap for the project. So we started in April 2023.
Please bear in mind that we have other speakers. So just to remind you of the time. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Eline. Make it short. So yes, indeed, technical roadmap. Basically, the intent at the beginning was to have the state of play, to understand what is the position in each of the member states, then draft the specifications, then the national implementations. So each member state with their national partner had to make sure that the specifications were rightfully implemented. For example, here is what we used in France. For the French audience, we also use Maëlys Gaël-Martin, which is apparent on the national identity card, but we also used her example in the wallet. And in the end, the core outcome of the different LSPs is to ensure interop between the member states. We have had multiple interop events. Picture is taken from Warsaw, and you can see on the slides that we already started peer-to-peer testing between member states and proven interop between those. Interop is a challenge, but since we are limited with time, I will just delve into that because we have multiple resources available for external parties which to test against those. So if you want to access those, get in touch with me. Thank you for your attention. If you are interested in the different resources, here is my email. The websites also list all resources, and if you wish to download the slides, here is the QR code. Thank you, and I will now take the different questions.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Unfortunately, we won't have time for questions at the moment, but we'll definitely make sure to send them through to you so you can address them in writing, if that's all right. I'm very sorry that we have to speed up, but there was quite a lot of interest from the audience from the start. So it's now going to be me moving to the last but not least presentation of the pilot projects, because then afterwards we have a very nice also presentation about digitalization in Ukraine. So I will give the floor to 2 speakers. Again, please bear in mind that we'd like to keep it to 10-15 minutes maximum. So the floor is yours, dear Louis and Gert. You're going to tell us more about DC4EU, and you let me know when I can move to the next slides. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you hear me? Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
perfect.
thank you.
Yes, thank you. This presentation will be a shared presentation, cooperation between myself. My name is Gerd Bauer. I'm work package leader 6 in DC4EU, which is like the social security use case, and I will share the presentation with Luis Aringo Martin from Spain, who is the leader of work package 5, which is about education professional qualifications. Next slide, please. Yes, we are DC4EU. We are a consortium representing like nearly 100 institutions from 25 countries. And we're working to support free movement of citizen learners and workers in Europe. So our objective is to apply the European identity ecosystem to education social security in a European context. So what we're really trying to do is trying to investigate, test, and pilot the issuance, revocation, suspension, and verification of educational credentials, professional qualifications, and social security entitlement documents. If you want to understand what we're doing on the business side, this will be the place to be here. We are also technicians, Luis and myself, but we will not dive into the technology. We stay on the business level, and we want to showcase what is possible, what are the issues, and what can we solve with our use cases. To understand what we're doing, I think we should take a step back and look at the status quo. So please, next slide. I think we are in very interesting times, and the current situation is both for education and social security, but also beyond those two domains, that traditional frameworks for EU-wide attestations, which are rooted in domain-specific relations, they struggle. They become increasingly fragmented, institution-driven, and siloed in response to the current digital transformation initiatives. This brings a lot of problems, and this is a little bit a barrier for the development of unified citizen-centric trust infrastructures that ensure legal validity, seamless interoperability, particularly, of course, in cross-border scenarios. And also, it poses significant barriers to integration with emerging pillars of the digital single market, such as digital identity, data spaces, cross-sectoral services. I just want to mention the OTS, the one's only technical system, the single digit gateway regulation, and others. So if you look at the issues we are facing currently, is we have a lot of fragmentation, especially in the public service domain. Social security example given is a public service domain. Most digital processes are national or sectoral silos. They're lacking common governance. This gives a lot of problems in terms of cross-border and cross-sectoral acceptance. Most of the solutions which are currently in place are based on bilateral agreements. Their trust is built on ad hoc collaborations or project-based infrastructures. We have a lot of manual processes in place. We have limited cross-border and cross-sectoral interoperability. Citizens face a lot of administrative burdens in terms of verification requests, redundant information exchange, etc. And the most important issue we are facing is we have a lack of EU-wide trust, absence of a EUDI framework, a EU-wide framework that ensures legal value for digital credentials across borders and across sectors. And these issues are not only problematic for the citizen, they are problematic for all stakeholders. So I will hand over to Luis to explain a little bit what are the stakeholders involved in our pilots, in our solutions in DC field.
Thanks, Gerd. On next slide, please. Okay. As we look at digital transformation across Europe, it's crucial to understand the ecosystem of stakeholders that must work together to make this vision a reality. At the heart of our project, of course, are the EU citizens themselves. The ultimate beneficiaries who will obtain, store, and share digital documents through the EUDI Wallet. But this citizen-centric approach only works with proper institutional support. So all the key stakeholders that you can see here, attestation providers, governmental bodies that are responsible for establishing the governance frameworks that ensure trust across borders, verifiers or relying parties, and so on. And also, often forgotten, underpinning all these, let's say, all these previous actors are the software providers and existing EU frameworks that serve as building blocks for this new architecture of trust. The interconnection of these stakeholders represent one of the most ambitious digital coordination efforts in European history. And also one of the DC4EU key objectives is precisely that, is to provide governance recommendations that ensure the meaningful involvement of all these stakeholders. Our consortium is actively mapping interdependence between these actors and developing frameworks for sustainable collaboration beyond the technical implementation, as said. Next slide, please. So The European Digital Identity Wallet represents a fundamental paradigm shift in how we think about identity and credentials online. Rather than siloed systems that don't communicate with each other, as already said by Gert, we are creating harmonized digital identity infrastructure where every EU citizen has access to a wallet containing verified personal identification data. This framework will allow social security entitlements, academic qualification, professional certifications to be issued as electronic attestation of attributes. But the beauty, let's say, of this system lies in its interoperability. So DC4U is making this theoretical ecosystem tangible by conducting real-world testing scenarios of these wallet interactions across multiple member states. Our pilots provide critical feedback on the usability, security, interoperability aspects of the EUDI Wallet ecosystem, helping to refine both technical specifications, of course, but also the user experience before large-scale adoption. And this also brings us to also an important question. What aspects of this ecosystem will actually become mandatory? So next slide, please. So the revised EIDA regulation brings these significant binding obligations that will fundamentally transform digital identity management across the Union. Member states must now provide every citizen with a EUDI wallet containing a legally recognized personal identification component. That's a PID. There are also three distinct categories of these electronic attestations that emerge under this framework. Non-qualified electronic attestation of attributes, which are mostly piloting for educational credentials within DC4U. Public sector body electronic attestation of attributes, the approach we are mostly taking for social security credentials, and of course also qualified electronic attestation of attributes for high assurance contents. So DC4U in this regard is actively testing the implementations across all these three attestation categories, providing also insights into the practical differences and implementation challenges. And our work, of course, is directly informing the development of the technical specifications and implementing acts, and that will make these mandatory requirements operational. So with this regulatory framework in mind, let's now examine how it specifically transforms the educational landscape across Europe. Next slide, please. So the combination of the EIDAS2 and the European Digital Identity Wallet fundamentally transforms how we interact with education and professional credentials. For the first time, I say, we are establishing a secure, interoperable, and portable digital identity framework that supports the goals of the European education area, the European research area, and other strategic initiatives for education and professional qualifications. These implications are profound. All member states will be required to offer a common, legally recognized means of digital identification through the EUDI Wallet. But this enables also equitable access to digital rights in education and qualification, regardless of where in the Union citizens resides. And this is also a great opportunity to harmonize the onboarding on education, for example, or how to request the usage of the PID to request and be issued with the formal, for example, degrees and all this stuff. So, and this regard, DC4U is specifically developing and testing educational credential formats that align with both European frameworks, like Europass, and global standards of verified credentials, such as W3C. Our consortium is bridging between the gap between high-level policy objectives and practical technical implementation, ensuring that the educational and professional credentials can be simply exchanged within both EU specific, but also global context. But what does it mean from the perspective of educational institutions themselves? Let's go for it. Next slide, please. For educational institutions, the EIDAS ecosystem represents
Bear in
both.
mind, you have 5 minutes left. I'm so
Okay.
sorry.
We'll skip. No worries. Let's say this new EIDAS ecosystem represents both opportunities and transformation. Administrative process that currently requires significant manual intervention, as already said, can be now automated through secure digital credentials, reducing costs while enhancing the student or professional experience through simpler and more reliable interactions. And in regard, this for you, of course, is working directly with educational institutions, but also those key stakeholders at member states to measure also the practical impacts of this transition. Our pilots are quantifying administrative time savings, student satisfaction improvements, and so on. And we will also provide guidelines and recommendations for the key stakeholders. Next slide, please. I will skip some of the context to ensure timeline. So let's say that also DC4U has developed reference implementation for credential issuance and verification services. Also, what we call the sectorial catalog rulebook, including also EAA catalog and electronic attributes catalog. So harmonize credentials for both education and professional qualifications around Europe that can be then used and understood properly on a cross-border context. Next slide, please. For national, let's say, for national education authorities, the EIDAS2 ecosystem represents a delicate balance, maintaining sovereignty while ensuring cross-border interoperability. So this framework enables member states to develop EU-compatible national digital infrastructure that fulfill their policy commitments around mutual recognition and digital transformation. And this for use directly contributed to the development of the educational and professional qualification sectorial rulebook, as said before. And as I say, our pilots are identifying potential gaps in the governance frameworks for education. We have already identified 3 main governance frameworks and suggesting also practical solutions that balance technical efficiency with national sovereignty concerns, but also ensuring European harmonization and monetization, and be ready to also exchange abroad Europe. And next slide, please. So this is just a highlight. I will not go deeper into this, but just to this, let's say, flow highlights how a student, how a citizen is requested to present his or her PID, and then, of course, double check against the trust model classical PKI for identity, and then with identity matching, that all these things have been harmonized at European level. They are also, the education institution also able to identify and provide an educational EAA that will be used from student side from home. I will now share the floor to Gert to go deeper into social security.
So I will also try to be fast, but focusing on the business content. Yeah, the social security use case. I think like what has been executed, tested in the last 1.5 years shows that the EUDI Wallet ecosystem will fundamentally transform social security coordination and reinforcing the legal framework for cross-border social security rights, because it will ensure seamless access to benefits, services, and real-time verification of entitlements and fraud-resistant identification, authentication, and entitlement verification. What you see here below on the diagram is like the ecosystem which we operate in, where we have 3 really stakeholders, which is the issuer, the competent institution of social security coordination, which issue credentials for European use, which we test 2 use cases. We used the EHIC as one attestation, and the second one is the PD1. The EHIC provides access to medical necessary state-provided healthcare during a temporary stay in an EU country. It's issued like 250 million times in Europe, so it's quite a number of attestations which are in the market. The PD1 certifies the applicable social security legislation for individuals working in another than the home country or multiple EU countries. It ensures that the worker pays social security contributions in one country only. So it's a very important document if you work abroad. Next slide. Yes. Very important is identity validation holder binding.
Sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to really try to wrap up in 2 minutes. I apologize again. Thank you so much.
Okay. So identity validation and holder binding is very important. So our use cases include identification of person and presentation of identity. together with the credentials. So we have a shared presentation of 2 attestations and a verification of these 2 attestations, including identity and social security attestations, which comes then also with another use case where we add educational credentials in a certain use case. So we share different attestations from different domains in one presentation. Next slide. Yes, we are showcasing how digital edges to social security rights can be executed seamlessly and streamlined throughout Europe. This is part of several pilot activities throughout Europe, using real citizens, using real verifiers, and using real issues. Yes, next slide. Yes, the same with the governance and mandatory trust framework, which we try to keep up. What is very important, we are public service in social security, so we are covering the regime public body attestations, which comes with a lot of different regulatory aspects. I don't want to get into details with this. Please look up at the regulation. But we are public service, so we serve more or less as a blueprint for public service attestations and with all the processes involved. Next slide. Yes, this is like a user journey from a business perspective, starting with the issuing of a credential, especially an EHIC here. Then we have like the storage within the wallet. It comes with mutual authentication between issuer and citizen, and then storing it into the wallet. Then we have like a verification scenario where we include identification, and we use the electronic identification means of the wallet to create trust and security in terms of identification of the citizen and the verifier. If you want to look into more details, just check the business blueprint document at the website of DC4U. You find all the scenarios in there, and they're described, and the business layer is well documented in terms of this use case journeys. So next slide, which will be the final thoughts. We heard all about this, about empowerment, efficiency, legal effect, and obligations, European leadership. I don't want to go into detail of this. This is very important, and I think there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of visions which we can follow, which not is an obligation, but introduces a lot of chances for social security to create lean and sustainable processes for the future. Final slide now. What is very important, that the EUDI Wallet trust framework will have significant impact on education and social security sector. The impact will become reality after the formal conclusion of the term of the current large-scale pilots. Our intention is to continue our work beyond that term to ensure that the issuance, revocation, suspension, and verification of credentials becomes the norm across member states as IDAS becomes mainstream, mandatory law. And we need definitely a large-scale deployment project afterwards so that we get operational with all the components and capabilities which provide chances for the future. So thank you for this. Just a short, small presentation of social security, unfortunately, but you find a lot of information in the social media and on our website.
Thank you very much, Luis and Gert. I am aware it's quite unpleasant to have to shorten the presentations this way, but unfortunately, in the interest of time, that's my job. But thank you. I know you've put a lot of time in the presentations, so thank you to all of our speakers for the pilot projects. Now we're going to turn to something a little bit different in a sense that it's beyond the usual EU borders and EU conversation, but nevertheless very much relevant for us. Because as some of you know, along with 19 other European member states, Ukraine is part of the potential consortium, which we discussed earlier. And the idea here is that we want to find out a little bit more about what Ukraine has done to create its own unique and very effective e-governance systems, and how it has its own digital tools to enhance the resilience of its public services. So I'm very happy to invite to take the floor Lucas Ilves, whose introduction is I don't need to really do, but you're currently advisor to Ukraine's Ministry of Digital Transformation. And so the floor is yours for 15 minutes, the remaining time, and perhaps we can go overboard for a couple of minutes or so, should you wish to take some questions from the audience. Lucas, the floor is yours, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Eileen. And as a consolation to all the previous speakers, my time has been cut too. As we go, let me just really quickly get my screen sharing. And while I'm doing that, what I want to note, of course, is that I am not Ukrainian. And indeed, many of you may know me from previous roles working for the Estonian government, from industry. I'm Estonian. But after I left my current role, there we go. It's showing. After I left my previous role, as government CIO for Estonia, I had the privilege to be asked by my colleagues in Ukraine to help them with a couple of things they're working on. So I want to tell you a little bit more broadly, of course, than just identity, the story of what Ukraine's been up to in the last few years, both before and during the war, focusing primarily on digital government services, but talking a little bit more broadly also about other kinds of innovation. To maybe give you a little bit of background on the overall story, 2019, President Zelensky was elected with a campaign promise of putting the state into a smartphone, kind of a very simple visualization of a lot of the work that we do every day. And since then, he launched a digital ministry, put in place a great team, and has completely revolutionized how technology is used in government in Ukraine. As an Estonian, I'd say I'm humbly proud that Estonia has played a not insignificant role in that. A lot of Estonians have contributed to figuring out what those reforms should look like. There's a fair bit of Estonian technology under the hood, and Estonia and Ukraine have worked very tightly since 2022. And indeed, my close personal relationship with many colleagues in the digital ministry started, unfortunately, with Russia's full-scale invasion, but where I had the privilege in various ways to bring a lot of my Estonian colleagues' efforts to bear to help Ukraine. But what we're going to talk about primarily is Ukraine's DIA app. So this is a state in a smartphone. It was launched in 2020 and has grown since then at really an incredible rate. So, I mean, we're going to talk about the features and what the app does, and that's all cool and incredibly sort of inspiring, I think, for a lot of countries. But for me, the most important thing is really the user numbers. They managed within 2 years to get nearly half of the adult population in Ukraine onboarded onto the app, give them an EID, using services, and now they have, by 2025, Ukraine's gotten to 22 million users in the app. And so if we think about the speed of adoption, I think this is almost a record pace. What we actually sort of have in DIA, which is the front end of your sort of standard digital government ecosystem with an interoperability solution, in this case based on Estonia's X-Road, called Trambita, which is sort of a nice allusion to to a sort of a nice allusion to trumpets that are used to communicate in the mountains in Ukraine, so sort of an older messaging protocol, and also the front end to a digital transformation of a lot of ministries, a lot of services. DIA, in the form of an app and a portal, have digitized more than 100 services and also provided more than 30 digital documents. Let's talk about the app a little bit more. So the app does two things. First of all, it's a front end to use a wide variety of digital services provided both by the digital ministry, other ministries in Ukraine. It also contains within itself 30 digital documents and an identity verification tool that can be used for public services, that can be used for banking, and that's also being increasingly integrated into various private sector services. So, I mean, I think in that sense, what you see Ukraine doing is going through the same process of step-by-step digitally transforming the critical public services, but doing so at an accelerated pace. And I would also note here that that 2022 really was something of a breaking point, because until then, the digitization had focused on sort of your usual convenient services, things like registration of marriage, birth of a child, starting a business, paying fines, which is not something anyone wants to do, but it's good that that's convenient and transparent. And from February 2022, Ukraine has also had to deploy a variety of services to help people deal with the circumstances that the population's found itself in. So things like authenticating yourself into a secure chat where you're able to forward information about the movement of enemy troops, which is particularly crucial in the first few months of the invasion. A service to allow people to, first of all, take pictures and document wartime destruction, which is used both for reimbursement claims and hopefully ultimately for the war crimes case against Russia, as well as to become eligible for various forms of financial support for internally displaced people and refugees abroad. DIA has also been very important for the government to be able to maintain contact with the millions of Ukrainians who are now refugees outside of Ukraine's borders, primarily, of course, in European countries, in that this allows them to, maintain their documents up to date, maintain their various forms of legal status within Ukraine, while also living outside of Ukraine. So let's talk a little bit about how DIA works and how both government, institutions, and businesses integrate into the app. There's a couple of functionalities here beyond sort of the use of services that are particularly interesting for private sector participants and third-party participants who want to build on top of this. So the first, of course, is digital documents. We'll talk about those in a little bit more detail in a moment, but private sector participants are able to both integrate as recipients and issuers of digital documents. The second, of course, is signatures. DIA gives an electronic signature that the EU has recognized as being advanced, and Ukraine itself recognizes qualified signatures from other EU countries. There are also other sort of interesting use cases. So, for instance, DIA can be used as an authentication channel for various types of chat channels or private sector service providers to make sure that the user is not a bot, which of course is particularly important in the context of a country that's under constant cyber attack, spoofing, and so on. So let's talk a little bit more in particular about digital documents. So as mentioned, DIA has about 30 digital documents, and these include both, actual, sort of dematerialized versions of standardized identity documents. So Ukraine was the first country to put passports into a dematerialized form, identity cards. I think the fourth country in Europe to offer a digital driver's license, but also various other types of claims can be put into a document form that are useful for everything from opening a bank account online, employment, even checking into a hotel, sort of the usual process of giving your identity documents so that your name and date of birth are copied down is handled automatically, as well as for forwarding other types of attestations. So what you see here on the screen is a simple example of how someone might forward their document, in this case, an identity document to a bank. You click on the relevant link in a service provider, you confirm the sharing in the DIA app, then you validate your identity. One of the things that Ukraine has done very well is to deploy two-factor in a manner that I think is a little bit more convenient for users than the usual sort of on-device element plus PIN code, which is on-device element plus biometrics. So both for authentication and signature, after you've created your identity the first time, you can use biometrics. The way that you, when you're giving a signature, confirm, by the way, that this is the sort of proper expression of your intent, is you blink, which is kind of cute if you ask me. But so, step 3, you authenticate yourself, and then the document is forwarded to the institution in question. The structure of the documents themselves, I think nothing terribly surprising here. Just a couple of different views, the information itself, and there's a more detailed view, and the way verification works. is primarily through QR code or barcode, where a DIA user also has a verification app that then will verify on the back end that the claim is valid and correct. The whole thing has been designed to be very safe and quite secure. The DIA app itself doesn't actually store users' data. It gets queried in the back end from various public and private databases over Trambita, so similar to what Estonia would do with X-Road. And so if you're the only party that actually sees the full register data that's put into these documents is the citizen, him or herself. And because of the sort of security environment that Ukraine's found itself in since 2014, they're very security conscious, including running a permanent open competition for ethical hackers to find potential backdoors with a bug bounty, and conducting constant pen tests. I have a video here. We're going to see if it works.
It does work, but I have no sound.
No sound. Okay, then let's not worry about it. We'll go to the next slide. So basically, I was going to talk for a moment about DIA in the European context. As I mentioned, Ukraine is part of the potential consortium, and on the assumption that Ukraine will be joining the EU within the next few years, everyone in Ukraine is very much focused on building both DIA and the broader services ecosystem in Ukraine to be fully compatible with the entire infrastructure of cross-border services that the EU is building right now. And there's a very clear functional reason for that, which is, I think even in the best of circumstances, there are going to be millions of Ukrainians living across Europe for the foreseeable future, and hopefully also many Europeans investing in Ukraine, coming to Ukraine. And so the sort of the business need for cross-border services, cross-border signatures, authentication between Ukraine and the rest of Europe, and I'd really say just about every country in Europe, is massive. And I think that's also why, from Ukraine's perspective, it's very good that Ukraine doesn't have to go country by country, but that we can actually do this in one go. I do want to say, of course, that Ukraine's ambitions go beyond just being interoperable, and that built, based on sort of the work that's been done over the last 5 years, Ukraine also wants to contribute to other countries' digital journeys. So the first thing I want to talk about is something I'm personally very proud about, because I was involved on the Estonian side, which is a few years ago, Estonia hadn't yet built a sort of its own government super app, and we looked at what Ukraine had done, particularly bearing in mind that in the back end, a lot of what they built between 2020 and 2022 was really inspired by Estonia, and said, well, why don't we base the Estonian app on what Ukraine has done and learned? So in 22 and 23, we built a beta version of the Estonian government app in collaboration with the DIA team, got very positive user feedback, and that experience was folded into what is now the Estonian MREEC app. And similarly, Ukraine is now working with a variety of countries across the world to develop their own government apps, and has made the source code for DIA available as an open source project. And so the hope is that having a good front end can become a digital public good in the same way that many of the backend tools that we've all built are today. Finally, I also want to talk a little bit about a few things sort of broader than the scope of digital government and public services, where Ukraine has also really been thinking hard about how to innovate. And the first of those, of course, is defense. So after the full-scale invasion in 2022, the government set up Brave One, which is, let's say formally the word here is a coordination platform, but let's say more broadly an accelerator to bring the best defense technology innovation, not just from Ukraine, but across the world to bear in the battlefield, to be very frank. And I think one of the things that Ukraine did very wisely was to realize that, yes, there are some incredible teams of innovation in Ukraine, but that to prevail in this conflict, Ukraine needs to leverage the skill really of the hundreds of millions of innovators in Europe, in North America, across the world. And so the Brave One platform, it has very clear mission goals across different defense areas and is open to individuals, teams, companies from across the world to come and pitch their solutions. And so within the last 3 years, Brave One members have developed a massive number of drones, innovations, electronic warfare, infantry warfare, and also on the more sort of software-focused side, the use of AI in the battlefield and support defense. And Ukraine's own innovation story here has been quite remarkable. Before the start of the full-scale invasion, I think there were 6 drone companies in Ukraine. Today, there are more than 300. And one of the things that Ukraine is now very actively discussing with the European Union is how to integrate that Ukrainian know-how into the EU's defense plans. Another area of innovation that is important for every country is education. So last year, the Ministry of Digital Transformation launched MRIA, which is Ukrainian for dream. So an app for parents, teachers, and students to use in instruction and to support their schoolwork. And again, there's a particular element here, which is MRIA is a tool to allow not just Ukrainian students in Ukraine, but potentially also Ukrainian students across the world to have instruction in Ukrainian, to have instruction by Ukrainian schools. And it's I won't go into detail here, but it's been designed to be really user-friendly, to be fun and gamified for kids to use in particular, and to be interoperable and support a lot of the good ed tech solutions already out there. Finally, sort of more framework level, at the end of last year, we launched the Win-Win 2030 Innovation Strategy. And the focus here, beyond continuing the innovation work that's happened in defense and GovTech, is to leverage the same dynamic of taking adversity and turning it into the mother of invention, as it were, to also pursue innovations in a variety of areas that are needed to win the peace. If we think about the challenges that Ukraine is going to have, even once the war ends, or let's say we come to a ceasefire and to an end of active hostilities, everything from rebuilding the country, most obviously, but also supporting 1 million ultimately demobilized soldiers with their both physical and mental health problems, hundreds of thousands of amputees, the challenges of a population that's spread across the world. The challenges, the adversity are quite clear. And the hope that Ukraine has is to turn this into further innovation, into both fundamental innovation in technology and applied innovation in solutions across a bunch of sectors. So what you just see here is a list of the, I think, 14 innovation sectors in the Win-Win strategy. And the sort of call to action here is, to builders, to funders, to innovators across the world, is that Ukraine really wants the best minds in the world to come to Ukraine. And what's on offer, of course, is a sense of mission and purpose, but also the framework conditions and people who really want to work with the best in the world to build amazing products and services. And so with that, I just want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. It's been, this is a little closing video there, showing you how the app works.
Very nice. So there is no sound, but at least yeah, that says a lot about what the app is about. But
It's a bit of visualization of what we're talking about.
And we can share them, if it's all right, with the participants.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyways, thank you very much for your time. And yeah, I think the message from Ukraine is that please view Ukraine as a 28th member of the EU, which it will be very soon. And to anyone who has a reason to come and visit Ukraine, absolutely do. The team at the Ministry of Digital Transformation elsewhere is delighted to work with you.
Thank you so much, Lucas. Thank you for this reminder as well. So we've indeed today we've explored the future of the digital identity for Europeans, but of course, as you remind us, if that's needed, that includes, of course, Ukraine as part of that future, and even the present. So it's only fitting that the app for Ukraine reminds us not just of who they are as a population, as a resilient society, but also how much innovation and insight they can and will bring to the table, and also how interdependent we are. So I'm very grateful for this very insightful presentation. Happy to have you back anytime, hopefully for longer, because I know you have so much experience in the field. And of course, we'd love to visit you in Ukraine. I'm very happy to know that you work at the ministry now. So thank you so much. And also thank you to our audience for joining us today. We've probably heard enough acronyms to crash a couple of servers, but it just goes to show that what's designed to be user-friendly and accessible is often anything but simple behind the scenes. So thank you so much to everyone, and to our speakers. We're very grateful for your time and for your insights. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you very soon again at our next Connect University session. Thank you. Bye.